The first time Elena walked into the penthouse, she had no idea her life was about to change. She hadn't expected the intense security. She hadn't expected the icy wind that came with the Manhattan skyline. And she definitely hadn't expected to be asked to fake a relationship with the richest, coldest, and most stunningly beautiful patient she had ever met. But then again, nothing about Vivian Cross ever followed expectation. Elena stood frozen just inside the glossy glass doors, the private elevator closing behind her with a soft hiss. Her hospital scrubs felt embarrassingly out of place against the sleek marble floors and modern minimalist design. But that wasn't what made her throat tighten. It was Vivian sitting there on a white leather chaise, backlit by the city lights, wearing a silk robe that probably cost more than Elena's annual rent, and staring at her like she was just another transaction. "Thank you for coming," Vivian said coolly. Her voice is smooth, practiced instrument. "Sit." Elena sat, mostly because her knees were locking, partly because Vivian Cross was not the kind of woman you said no to. "I don't have much time," Vivian continued, "and I'm not good at wasting it." There was a pause. Not hostile, just deliberate. "I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend for a day." Elena blinked. "I'm sorry." "What?" "You heard me." Vivian's gaze didn't waver. "There's an event tomorrow. Charity gala. It's personal. I need someone by my side. Someone who won't ask questions. Someone temporary." Elena swallowed hard. "Why me?" "Because you're a nurse. You know how to keep people alive. You also know how to shut up. I've watched you. You're calm, composed. You don't get involved." Elena's stomach turned. So, she had been watching her. "You want me to lie to your friends, your family. I want you to lie to everyone." Vivian leaned forward. "And I'll pay you $20,000 to do it." Elena's breath caught. "One night?" "Yes, 20 grand. You'll stay the night after." Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments, on a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference just to keep up appearances. But yes, Elena didn't speak. Her mind raced, calculating her student debt, her mother's medication bills. Her rent increased last month. She didn't trust Vivian Cross, but she also didn't have the luxury of saying no. "Okay," she said softly. Vivian smiled. Not kindly, not warmly, just satisfied. "You'll wear what I provide. You'll stay close. You'll kiss me if necessary." Elena flushed. "I'm sorry." "Kiss." Girlfriend's kiss. Elena. It was the first time Vivian said her name, and somehow that made it worse, more intimate, more dangerous. "Do you think you can handle that?" Elena forced herself to look at her, to not flinch under that quiet dominance. "Yes," she whispered. Vivian stood, walking slowly toward her, and for a second, Elena forgot how to breathe. She was taller than she looked from across the room. Her illness wasn't visible yet, but it was there in the way she moved just slightly too carefully, in the faint shadow under her eyes, in the perfect composure that looked like it cost energy to maintain. "Good," Vivian murmured. She stopped, only inches away. "Because if you can't sell this, I'll know." The next day came faster than Elena expected. The dress was already hanging in the closet of the private suite. Vivian had moved her into overnight, a black velvet piece that hugged her curves and left too much skin exposed. It made her feel beautiful and vulnerable. Vivian appeared in the doorway without warning, dressed in a sharp tuxedo with a silk lapel and a watch that shimmered like diamonds. Her eyes swept over Elena. "Not bad." "Thanks," Elena replied, cheeks warm. "You clean up terrifyingly well yourself." For a second, Vivian almost smiled. Almost. "Try not to look so nervous. They can smell it." The ride down was silent, intense. When the car doors opened at the gala, cameras flashed and Elena instinctively reached for Vivian's hand. She didn't expect the squeeze back. Firm, reassuring. Real. As they walked inside, arm in arm, Elena tried to remember that this wasn't real, that Vivian was her patient, that this was a game, a performance. But the second Vivian leaned in and whispered, "You're doing perfectly, darling." With that low, sultry voice, Elena's heart betrayed her, and she knew she was in trouble. Elena couldn't stop rehearsing what she would say when the night ended, how she would draw a clear line between her job and whatever it was Vivian thought this arrangement could become. It was supposed to be a one-night performance, nothing more. But even now, walking behind Vivian through the glittering crowd of the gala, she felt her heartbeat betraying her. The dress clung to her body like it belonged to someone else. Every camera flash made her flinch. Every step Vivian took seemed rehearsed, poised, perfectly timed, and Elena was one breath behind, constantly catching up. She hadn't agreed to this sort of pressure. Not tonight. Not under bright lights and whispered rumors. Her pulse ticked hard at her throat like a metronome. She was an emergency nurse. She kept people alive in chaos. But this was another battleground. And the woman beside her wasn't a patient tonight. Not exactly. Not with the way she kept a palm at Elena's back, lightly steering her like she belonged to her. Elena leaned in just close enough to murmur, "You didn't mention there'd be this many cameras. Do you want to be paid or not?" Vivian answered, her mouth barely moving. "I assumed you knew what public meant. I assumed public meant a dinner and speeches, not paparazzi and carpets." "Then assume less next time." Elena set her jaw. She hated being talked down to. She hated even more how stunning Vivian looked while doing it. That quiet control, the kind that implied power forged over years of knowing no one would dare cut her off. Elena wanted to hate it. Wanted to hate her. But she couldn't shake the sense that under all that armor, something was unraveling. Something frightened. Something solitary. "Why me?" Elena asked softly as they paused before a tall man in a navy suit. "Why not hire a performer? Someone who knows what they're doing?" Vivian turned to her slowly, the corner of her mouth tipped up, not in a smile, more like a warning. "Because a performer wouldn't challenge me. You do. You make people uneasy." "Elena, I needed that." Before Elena could respond, the man welcomed them warmly. "Vivian." And this must be her. Elena tensed, unsure whether to extend her hand or simply smile. Vivian, without breaking rhythm, slid her arm through Elena's and drew her in close. "This is Elena, my girlfriend." The word landed like a blow. Not because of what it meant, but because of how smoothly it left Vivian's tongue. How convincing. It sounded as if it weren't pretend, as if they'd done this before. Elena nodded. Stiff. Hi. They drifted through the crowd, Vivian presenting her as if it were muscle memory. No slips, no falter. Just an easy grace in every invented anecdote she shared where they'd met. What pulled her toward Elena? How stubborn she was in all the right ways. Elena felt herself caught between irritation and admiration. It was like watching a play where the lead had written both parts. When they finally reached a quieter corner of the venue, Elena let out a breath. "You're disturbingly skilled at lying." Vivian sipped champagne. "You're disturbingly bad at hiding discomfort. You asked me to lie to everyone here. And you agreed because I need the money. That doesn't mean I enjoy any of this." Vivian turned her head, eyes narrowing a fraction. "Then why are you still here?" Elena went still. It was a fair question, a true one, and it didn't deserve the first answer tempting her tongue. "Because you're ill. Because you looked lonely when you said someone temporary. Because I don't know who I am anymore unless I'm fixing someone. Instead," she said, "because I keep my agreements." Vivian held her stare. Something unreadable flickered across her expression. Then, softly, "Do you always hide behind duty? Do you always hide behind money?" The silence that followed was taut, delicate, but Vivian didn't strike back. She only looked away, jaw tight, and Elena felt something shift. A hairline crack in the marble. Small, but real. They left the gala just after midnight. The drive back to the penthouse was wordless. Elena stared out the window, hands folded tightly in her lap. When they arrived, Vivian walked ahead of her, heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Elena didn't follow immediately. She stood in the entryway, unsure if she was supposed to say goodnight. Walk away. Pretend this whole night hadn't happened. You'll stay, Vivian said over her shoulder, not turning around. That was part of the deal. Elena inhaled slowly. I don't want to sleep with you. I didn't ask you to. Then what do you want? Vivian finally turned. Her face was unreadable again, but her voice was quieter now. I want someone else in the room when I wake up. That's all. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't seductive. It was raw, vulnerable. A sentence that cracked something in Elena she didn't know was still soft. She hesitated, then walked deeper into the apartment, past the luxury, past the elegance, and into the ache beneath it. Fine, she said, her voice low, but I'm not sleeping in your bed. Suit yourself. Elena found the guest room with its minimalist decor and sterile perfection. She lay in the dark, eyes open, listening to the silence. And when she finally drifted off, it was not to dreams, but to the memory of Vivian's voice, fragile in the dark. I want someone else in the room when I wake up. And Elena wondered for the first time, but not the last, what exactly Vivian Cross was afraid of facing alone. The morning light spilled into the penthouse with brutal honesty. Elena blinked awake. In the unfamiliar guest bed, the sheets soft and cold, the silence too pristine to be comforting. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the events of the previous night rushed back in. A gala, a fake smile, a touch on the small of her back that still burned like a secret. She sat up slowly. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. 5 missed messages from her best friend, 2 from her mother. She didn't answer any of them. Instead, she stepped barefoot onto the marble floor and padded down the hallway toward the kitchen, half expecting Vivian to be gone, or hidden behind another closed door like a ghost haunting her own fortress. But she was there, standing at the stove in an oversized sweater, sleeves rolled up, her hair tied into a loose, imperfect knot. The image didn't match the version of her from the night before. This Vivian looked human. Elena froze in the doorway. You cook. I exist. I eat. Sometimes the two overlap, right? Elena crossed her arms, defensive without knowing why. Last night wasn't part of your original request. Neither was the omelette, Vivian said calmly, plating it. But here we are. She set the dish on the counter. Eat. Elena didn't move. Why are you doing this? Because I have a few days left to do what I want. I wanted last night. I want breakfast. This morning. I want quiet days. Elena's voice cracked slightly. Vivian didn't flinch. You'll see the test results eventually. You're a nurse. You'll read between the lines. Elena sat slowly, her appetite gone. You're not doing treatment. I did for years. It didn't work. So, you're just what? Giving up. Vivian looked at her, really looked, with an intensity that didn't allow for pretense. I'm choosing how I want to spend what's left. Don't mistake that for surrender. Elena looked away, jaw tight. I'm sorry. That was harsh. No harsher than truth. For a while, they sat in silence. The omelet between them went untouched. The air between them didn't crackle with tension. It simmered low and slow like something waiting to ignite, but refusing to burn too soon. What happens now? Elena asked. Now Vivian stood picking up her coffee. You can go. Our deal was for one night. Was it? You fulfilled your part. I paid you. We're done. You don't want me to stay. Vivian's smile was brief and sad. Want is dangerous. You said you didn't want to wake up alone, and I didn't. So, what changed in 7 hours? Vivian leaned against the counter, coffee cradled in her hands. You started asking questions. You care. That makes you dangerous, too. Elena stood. I'm not dangerous, aren't you? Vivian's voice dropped. You make me want things I swore I wouldn't want again. Elena's breath caught. Not from the words, but from the way they were said. Not flirtatious, not seductive, but raw, honest, heavy. What do you want from me, Vivian? I don't know. The admission landed harder than anything else. I just know. I didn't feel dead last night. Elena took a step back. This isn't fair. No, Vivian said. It isn't. The tension stretched like a thread between them, ready to snap. Elena turned, headed toward the guest room, needing air, space, time, anything to pull her back into herself. But Vivian's voice stopped her just before she closed the door. Stay for one more day. Elena hesitated. Why? Because I don't know how to ask for things without turning them into transactions. Elena's hand clenched around the doorknob. She hated how much that sentence hurt. Hated even more how she felt herself softening again. No touching. No pretending. Agreed. I'm not here to save you. I know. And if I stay, it's not for the money. Vivian didn't answer. She just nodded once. Elena closed the door slowly and leaned her back against it. What the hell was she doing? She was supposed to be detached. She was supposed to be immune to this kind of emotional mess. But Vivian wasn't a mess. She was curated chaos, unraveling, one controlled thread at a time. And Elena, God help her, was starting to care. Elena didn't sleep. Not really. Not with the quiet weight of Vivian's words still circling her head. I don't know how to ask for things without turning them into transactions. It wasn't pity that kept her in the apartment. It wasn't guilt. It was something quieter, something more dangerous. She told herself it was curiosity. Compassion maybe. She was a nurse. Caring was what she did. But even that sounded like a lie now. Because when she passed Vivian's door the next morning and heard her coughing dry, tight, exhausted, it wasn't professional instinct that made her hand hover over the door knob. It was something personal, something human. She didn't knock. She walked into the living room and waited. 10 minutes later, Vivian emerged pale and perfectly dressed, her eyes hidden behind designer sunglasses, even though the blinds were closed. You look like hell, Elena said flatly. Good morning to you, too. You didn't sleep either, did you? I don't waste time sleeping. You'd be surprised how quickly everything becomes noise when your clock starts ticking louder. Elena sighed, arms crossed. Have you eaten? Does it matter? Yes. Vivian tilted her head. You sound like a nurse again. I am a nurse. I thought you were just here for one more day. Elena ignored the jab. I made coffee. So domestic. Don't flatter yourself. I needed caffeine to tolerate your personality. Vivian let out a faint sound that might have been a laugh or a cough disguised as one. You're growing bolder. I'm tired of walking on eggshells. Then stop. You don't make that easy. No. Vivian agreed. I don't. Silence settled between them like fog. Elena turned and walked to the kitchen. Eat something. I don't care if you're rich and dying. Low blood sugar makes you even more insufferable. She didn't look back to see if Vivian followed. She just set the plate on the counter and poured 2 mugs of coffee. A moment later, she heard footsteps. This is very unprofessional, Vivian said, sitting across from her. You're not my patient yet. Here we are. You could walk out right now. You don't owe me anything. Elena finally held her gaze. I don't abandon people who don't know how to ask for help. You think that's what this is? I think you're afraid. And you hide it under quips and couture. And I think you fake being tough because attachment terrifies you. Elena's chest pulled tight. This isn't a contest over who's more emotionally wrecked. Maybe it should be. Vivian, I'm serious, she said, her voice lower now. I've spent my life turning people into staff, assets, obligations. I made peace with that. And then I met you. And you don't fit any of those categories. Elena blinked. What category am I meant to fit? I don't know. Then stop trying to control it all. Let this, whatever this is, be what it is. And what do you think it is? Elena didn't reply. She didn't know how. She drained her coffee quietly. The cup rattled faintly when she set it down, a small tremor betraying what her face refused to show. The rest of the day moved in a slow, strange stillness. Vivian had no schedule, no deals, no guests. She asked Elena to sit with her and read. No talking, just presence. They sat at opposite ends of the same sofa for hours, reading in quiet, breathing in the same cadence without noticing. Once their fingers brushed, reaching for the same throw, and neither pulled back. It wasn't deliberate. It wasn't flirtation. It simply was. That night, Elena stood in the hallway, hovering outside the guest room again. Vivian, she called. A pause. Yes. Do you want company? The reply came slower than expected. Only if it's not from pity. Elena opened the door. Vivian lay in bed, robe loosely tied, hair unpinned. She looked nothing like the woman who faced red carpets and owned whole towers. She looked soft and small. I'm not here to pity you, Elena said gently. Then come in. Elena stepped in but didn't sit. I won't cross lines, Vivian. I'm still trying to understand what this is. So am I good? She paused, studying her. Good night. She started to go. Elena, Vivian called, softly. Yeah. Thank you for staying. Elena said nothing, but she didn't leave either. She moved to the mattress edge, took Vivian's hand, and held it for a long breath. No expectations, no implications, just being here. When she finally released her, she left without looking back. And Vivian, alone in the dark again, finally let herself cry. Elena hadn't planned to stay another night. She told herself it was temporary, just as Vivian had said it would be. But temporary kept stretching. Days bled into each other like pale watercolors, blurred, quiet, full of silences, louder than most conversations. She slipped into a rhythm. Coffee at dawn, quiet until midday, shared pages, a few dry barbs. Sometimes meals, sometimes not. Sometimes Vivian vanished into her room for hours. Elena wouldn't ask. She wanted to, but she didn't. One morning, Elena walked into the living room to find Vivian at the window, still in her robe, staring out at the city as if it owed her something. You look like you're waiting for a verdict, Elena said. Maybe I am. Anything you want to say about it? Not especially. Elena folded her arms. You know, this whole emotionally constipated act isn't actually charming, says the woman who built a wall so high around herself. I'm getting vertigo just standing near it. Elena almost laughed. Touche. Vivian turned slowly, and Elena was struck again by how fragile she looked when unobserved. The bone structure remained daunting, the posture still proud. In the soft lamplight, her edges seemed newly human. But there were fractures. Why did you become a nurse? Vivian asked. Elena hesitated. Because I couldn't save my father. Vivian blinked. You don't have to answer. No, Elena said softly. He died when I was 15. Cardiac arrest. We were at a gas station, just the two of us. I didn't know CPR. I watched him go. A beat of silence. Vivian looked down. I'm sorry. Yeah, Elena said. Me, too. So, you decided to make sure you'd never be powerless again. Something like that. I admire it. Elena gave her a long look. That almost sounded sincere. Don't get used to it. The tension eased, but it didn't disappear. Later that afternoon, Elena stepped out to get groceries. Her idea, not Vivian's. She needed air, needed something normal. She didn't tell Vivian she was leaving. She assumed she'd be fine for an hour. She wasn't. When Elena returned, hands full of paper bags, she found the front door slightly ajar. Her stomach clenched. Vivian. Silence. She dropped the bags and rushed inside, calling louder. Vivian. No answer. Her pulse surged. She moved through the apartment, checking room by room until she found her on the floor of the bathroom, pale, sweating, gasping through shallow breaths. Oh my God. Elena dropped to her knees. Vivian. Hey, look at me. What happened? Just dizzy, Vivian whispered. Got up too fast. You're not okay. You're not okay. And you didn't call me. Didn't want to be trouble. You are trouble. Elena reached for her wrist, checking her pulse. Come on, let me help you up. Vivian didn't resist. That scared Elena more than anything. She was too light in her arms, too quiet. Once she got her to the bed, Elena checked her oxygen, her blood pressure. Everything was off. You need fluids and food now. Bossy alive. Elena sat on the edge of the bed, her tone sharper than usual. You're playing with your life. It's already borrowed. I don't care. You don't get to go like that. Not on a bathroom floor. Not alone. Vivian's eyes fluttered closed. Why do you care? Elena stood abruptly. I don't know. She left the room before she could say something stupid. But hours later, when Vivian was stable again, hydrated and fed and wrapped in warmth, Elena came back. She didn't say anything, just climbed into bed beside her, not touching, not speaking, but present. Vivian's voice came in the dark, quiet, and small. I'm sorry I scared you. Elena swallowed hard. Don't do it again. No promises. Then I'll stay. A pause. Why? Because I can't pretend I don't care anymore. Vivian didn't answer, but her hand reached across the space between them, resting lightly on Elena's arm. And Elena didn't pull away. Elena hadn't meant to fall asleep next to her. She told herself it was temporary, just until Vivian stabilized, just until her breathing evened out, just until she was sure nothing catastrophic was going to happen in the middle of the night. But when morning broke through the penthouse windows, Elena woke up tangled in silk sheets, one leg thrown lightly over Vivian's, her face tucked into the curve of the woman's neck. It was the kind of closeness that didn't happen by accident. She pulled back immediately. Carefully, slowly, Vivian stirred slightly, murmuring something indecipherable, but didn't wake. Elena slipped out of bed and moved to the kitchen, heart pounding with something she refused to name. She poured herself coffee, stood barefoot on cold marble, and stared at nothing while her mind ran in anxious circles. She wasn't supposed to be here, not emotionally, not physically, and yet, every time she thought of walking away, her feet refused. Hours passed before Vivian emerged. She looked better, more color in her face, less guardedness in her posture. But she said nothing about the night before, not about Elena staying, not about the hand that had reached for her in the dark. You feeling better? Elena asked, voice tight. Vivian nodded once. Thanks to you. You scared the hell out of me. That makes two of us. Silence. Elena tried to drink her coffee, but it tasted wrong now. Vivian sat across from her, picking at a piece of toast, her gaze flicking between the plate and Elena's face like she wanted to say something, but didn't know how. Finally, Elena broke the silence. We need to talk about what this is. Vivian arched a brow. Define this exactly. I can't and neither can you. But it's not nothing anymore. No, Vivian said quietly. It's not. Elena braced herself. So I don't know how to do this. Do what? Let someone stay without resenting them for it. That hit harder than it should have. I'm not staying to fix you. I know. Then don't punish me for caring. Vivian looked away. It's not you I punish. It's me for letting it happen again. Elena narrowed her eyes. Again, Vivian didn't answer at first. She pushed the plate away and leaned back in the chair as if bracing herself. There was someone, years ago before the diagnosis, before the walls. She loved me in spite of the worst parts of me, and I ruined it because I thought love meant weakness. Elena exhaled slowly. And now I know better, but it's too late for better. Elena stood suddenly overwhelmed. You think you're protecting me by keeping me at arm's length, but all you're doing is making sure you die alone. Vivian didn't flinch. That's the plan. It's a shitty plan. It's a safe one. Elena stepped closer. Safe is cowardice when you still have something to lose. Their eyes locked. The air between them was thick with everything unsaid. Elena's heart raced in her chest, but she didn't reach out. She couldn't. Not when Vivian looked at her like that, like wanting her was a crime she couldn't afford to commit again. I should go, Elena said quietly. I've already stayed too long. Vivian's voice caught. Will you come back? You shouldn't ask me that, but I want to. Elena closed her eyes. I'll come back tomorrow, but not as a nurse and not as a paid fantasy. Then as what? Elena opened the front door, her voice steady even as her hands trembled. As someone who doesn't want to fall in love with you and is afraid she already is. She didn't wait for a response. She left before Vivian could answer, before she could regret the truth that slipped out too soon. She spent the entire day walking through the city like a ghost, lost in thought, tortured by the way Vivian had looked at her, by the way she hadn't stopped her, by the way her absence already had more than it should. That night, Elena returned. She didn't knock, didn't text, just walked back into the penthouse like it was inevitable. Vivian was on the couch, a book in her lap, though her eyes weren't moving. When she looked up and saw Elena, she didn't smile. She just said, "You came back." "Yeah," Elena whispered. "I did." Vivian nodded once, then stay. The silence between them was heavier than it had ever been. Not sharp, not angry, just full, dense with everything neither of them had the vocabulary for yet. Elena sat on the couch beside Vivian, close but not touching, the space between their bodies burning with restraint. Outside, the city moved on without them. Inside, the world had shrunk to breathing, glances, and the soft weight of unspoken want. "You said you'd come back," Vivian murmured, voice low. "I didn't think you would. I didn't think I would either." "Then why?" "Because I wanted to hate you, but I couldn't." Vivian turned her head slowly. "I think that's the most honest thing anyone said to me in years." Elena gave a dry smile. "That's sad." "No," Vivian said almost like a breath. "It's relief." They didn't talk for a while after that. They just sat surrounded by the muffled quiet of the apartment and the sharp edges of everything they were both afraid to feel. Eventually, Vivian spoke again softer. "Do you know what I miss the most?" Elena looked at her. "What?" "The sound of someone brushing their teeth in the next room. The hum of another person in the kitchen. The feeling that someone else exists in your space without needing permission." Elena blinked, caught off guard. "That's what you miss. The ordinary," Vivian said. "All the little things that tell you you're not alone." Elena swallowed hard. "You could have had that. Still could. Not like this. You don't get to decide what someone else is willing to stay for, don't I?" Vivian's tone shifted, wounded and cold all at once. "I'm dying, Elena. This isn't a tragedy someone wants to sign up for. You don't get to choose that either." Vivian looked at her sharply. Elena didn't flinch. "You think you're doing me a favor by keeping me away, but all you're doing is deciding for me. I'm protecting you. You're isolating yourself." Vivian stood abruptly. "What do you want from me?" Elena stood too, matching her intensity. "I want honesty. I want vulnerability. I want you to stop pretending you're some cold, untouchable woman when I've seen you in pain, scared, and so __ human it terrifies me." Vivian's breath hitched. For a moment, Elena thought she might cry, but she didn't. Instead, she said, "You saw me at my weakest and you stayed. That scares me more than dying." Elena stepped closer. "Then be scared. I am too." "Why?" Vivian's voice cracked. "Because this isn't fair. I don't want to fall in love with someone who's already leaving." Elena didn't answer right away. Her voice was steady when it came. "Then don't fall. Just stay." Vivian closed her eyes. She looked like she was breaking. What if I want more time and I don't have it? Then you spend what you have like it matters. Elena reached out. Not to touch, not yet, but to close the space just enough to breathe the same air. I'm not asking you to promise me anything. I'm asking you to stop pretending none of this is real. The silence held for a long, aching moment. Then Vivian whispered, "Okay." Elena stepped back, gave her space. "I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. Just call me if you need anything." "I will." Elena turned to go, but just before she reached the hallway, Vivian's voice stopped her. "Elena." "Yeah. Would you stay for a little while longer?" "Just here." Elena turned back, hesitated, then walked to the couch and sat beside her again. No words, no contact, just presence. They stayed like that for hours, shoulder to shoulder in quiet, while the city glow shimmered over the glass and time thinned into something gentler. Neither of them knew what the next day would bring. But for the first time, they weren't facing it alone. The morning felt hushed, a different kind of hush. Not the dense, avoidant quiet from before, but something softer, almost domestic. Elena woke in the guest room, briefly confused by the pale light sliding through the curtains and the faint drift of music moving through the apartment. Piano low, mournful, she slipped from bed and padded barefoot down the hall. In the main room, Vivian sat at a polished black piano Elena hadn't registered before, because it had always been draped untouched. Now it lived beneath Vivian's hands. The music poured from her like admission. She didn't notice Elena at first, and Elena didn't interfere. She watched still, silent, caught in the tender strangeness of witnessing something Vivian had clearly kept hidden for a very long time. When the last note dissolved into hush, Vivian exhaled like she'd been holding air the whole time. "You play," Elena murmured. Vivian startled, then turned her head. "Not for anyone else." That was beautiful. It used to be easier. Elena crossed the room slowly and lowered herself into the chair opposite the piano. "Why did you stop?" "Same reason I stopped doing most things. Somewhere between hurting and fear, I lost the point." "The point of what?" "Letting anything matter." Elena considered her. "And now you're here." The words weren't romantic. They weren't even offered with warmth. But they landed heavy, like a truth Vivian couldn't undo. "What do you want from me?" Elena asked. "Right now, yes." Silence. Elena nodded, understanding. They stayed like that a while. The piano between them. Nothing spoken. Everything felt. Later that afternoon, Elena stood in the kitchen rinsing a few dishes when Vivian came up behind her barefoot. "Quiet. You don't have to clean," she said. "I know. But you do. You think accepting help is weakness," Elena said without turning. "But for me, helping is how I stay upright." Vivian didn't answer. Instead, she stepped closer slowly and stood beside her at the sink. She reached for a towel. "You wash. I'll dry." Elena shot her a surprised glance. "Really? I'm dying." "Not useless." Elena huffed. "First joke you've made in 3 days. I'm trying something new." They settled into the task. Clumsy at first, then easier. The rhythm of it anchored them like a sensed heartbeat. When they finished, Elena leaned on the counter and studied her. "What were you like before all this?" "Meaner," Vivian said at once. "Colder, richer in money, poorer in everything else." "Do you miss her? The version of you from before?" Vivian tipped her head. "I don't know. She never cried. She never begged. She never had to look someone in the eye and admit she was afraid. But she also never played piano for anyone. Never let someone remain. I think I prefer this version." Vivian's lashes lowered slowly. Even if she's dying, especially because she's finally living. The moment split open something. Vivian stepped nearer. So did Elena. No words, only inches closing, eyes fixed, breath shared. But neither of them leaned in to kiss. It wasn't time. It wasn't safe yet. So instead, Elena lifted a hand and touched Vivian's fingers. Vivian let her eyes fall shut, leaned forward not into a kiss, but into Elena's shoulder, and Elena held her there. The room seemed to breathe with them in quiet, patient time together that night. One hand on her back, one hand in her hair. Nothing romantic, nothing performative, just closeness, just comfort, just real. Minutes passed like that, silent and sacred. Eventually, Vivian pulled back. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For not asking me to be someone I'm not. You're not as hard as you pretend to be. Don't tell anyone." Elena smiled. "Your secret's safe." That night, Elena didn't sleep in the guest room. She didn't sleep in Vivian's bed either. They shared the couch, blankets, one glass of wine, to stories from Vivian's childhood. She claimed she'd never told anyone. Elena fell asleep with her head on Vivian's lap, and Vivian stayed awake long after, stroking her hair like a secret she couldn't afford to say out loud. But it was there in her touch, in her breath, in the way she looked down at Elena with something dangerously close to love. There was something terrifyingly tender about waking up in someone's arms. Elena hadn't meant to fall asleep with her head on Vivian's lap, and she definitely hadn't expected to wake up with Vivian's fingers still tangled in her hair, soft and unmoving, as if afraid the moment would break if she shifted too soon. Elena blinked slowly, adjusting to the faint morning light filtering through the windows. She didn't move, didn't speak, just listened to the steady rhythm of Vivian's breathing above her. "Are you awake?" Vivian asked softly, not looking down. "Yeah." A pause. "I didn't mean to fall asleep. I didn't mean to let you." Elena turned her head just enough to look up at her. There was no mask on Vivian's face, no careful distance, no armor, just tired eyes and something warm in them, something scared. "This is dangerous," Elena whispered. "I know, but I don't want to leave." "Then stay." Elena sat up slowly, watching her, waiting. "Say it again." "Stay," Vivian said, firmer this time. "Not because of the money. Not because I asked. Because you want to." "I want to." The words were simple, but they hit like confessions. Vivian inhaled sharply. "Then we stopped pretending. Just for one day. No lies, no walls, no pretending. We don't want the things we want." Elena nodded once. One day," Vivian echoed. They didn't talk much after that, but everything changed. It was in the way Elena handed Vivian her coffee and brushed their fingers together. Not by accident. It was in the way Vivian stood behind Elena in the kitchen, her presence a silent tether, closer than before, her breath brushing the edge of Elena's neck. It was in the long looks, the half smiles, the way their hands began to find each other without thinking. By late afternoon, the sun poured into the penthouse like melted gold, warm and soft and impossibly perfect. Elena sat curled on the couch, a book forgotten in her lap. Vivian stood by the window, arms crossed, eyes distant. "What are you thinking?" Elena asked. "That this is the first time in years I haven't felt like I'm waiting to die." Elena stood, walked to her slowly. "You're not dying right now. No. Right now you're just here with me." Vivian turned to her. "Elena. Yeah. I want to kiss you, but I don't want it to feel like goodbye." Elena stepped closer. "Then don't let it be." "You're sure?" "I'm terrified." "Me, too." And then finally they kissed. Slow, careful, honest. There was no urgency, no desperation, just two people choosing each other in the middle of the impossible. Elena cubed Vivian's face as if it were something delicate and priceless. Vivian melted into her like she'd been holding herself up for too long. When they pulled apart, neither spoke. There was too much between them now. Too much to ruin with clumsy words. That night, they didn't pretend. Elena didn't go to the guest room. Vivian didn't sleep alone. They shared a bed, not with heat, but with something deeper. Trust. Elena lay curled at her side, one arm draped across Vivian's stomach, feeling the slow rise and fall of her breath like proof that she was still here. Vivian whispered into the dark, "I don't know how to be in love with someone I can't keep." Elena kissed the edge of her shoulder. "Then just love me for today and tomorrow. We'll figure that out if we get there." Vivian didn't cry, but something broke in her chest. Something quiet and heavy and no longer alone. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was waiting to disappear. She felt like she belonged. Just for tonight, just in this room, just with her. There were moments that didn't feel real. Moments that passed so quietly, so softly. They felt more like memory than present. Elena woke in Vivian's bed just before sunrise. The light hadn't yet crept through the blinds, but the warmth beside her was enough to tether her to the moment. Vivian was asleep, barely, but her hand rested over Elena's, as if her body refused to forget she wasn't alone. Elena studied her. In the half-light, the shape of her mouth, the slight tension in her brow, the way she looked younger like this, unguarded, fragile, human. Elena knew better than to believe in fairy tales. She'd seen too much of life, too much of death. But there was something devastatingly beautiful about watching Vivian sleep. Something that made her want to stay, even if it hurt, especially because it hurt. She moved slowly, brushing a strand of hair from Vivian's cheek. The touch made Vivian stir, eyes fluttering open, unfocused for a moment. Then she saw Elena, and the faintest smile pulled at her lips. "Still here," she murmured. "Still here." Elena echoed. "I didn't dream you. No, I'm real." "God," Vivian whispered, voice rough with sleep. "That's worse." Elena smiled even as her chest tightened. "Why? Because it means I'll have to miss you when you're gone. You don't have to think about that yet." "I always think about it." Elena sat up slightly, shifting so they were face to face. "Then think about this instead." She leaned forward and kissed her. Not with hesitation this time. Not with fear, with certainty, with hunger. With the ache of someone who finally realized she didn't want to waste another second. Vivian responded with equal need. Her hands found Elena's waist, her back, her face. Their bodies moved with a quiet urgency, not rushed, but raw. They undressed each other without ceremony, without pretense. Every movement felt sacred, not because it was perfect, but because it was real, honest, earned. They made love like it was a conversation, like every sigh, every gasp, every pause said what their mouths were too afraid to. And when it was over, they didn't speak. They didn't need to. Elena lay with her head on Vivian's chest, listening to the slowing rhythm of her heartbeat like it was music written only for her. Vivian stroked her back gently, breathing deeply, eyes open. "I didn't think I'd ever have this again," she said finally. "This kind of peace." Elena kissed her collarbone. "You deserve it." "I don't. I think you do." Elena. "Yeah. If I ask you to stay longer than a day, would you?" Elena sat up slightly. "Are you asking?" Vivian hesitated. "I don't know how." "Then let me help you." She reached for Vivian's hand and placed it over her own chest. "I'm here, not because I have to be, not because of some fake deal, but because I want to be. You don't need to ask for more than that." Vivian looked like she was fighting tears. "I'm scared of needing you. I know. What if I get used to this to you? Then you'll get used to something good for once. And when it ends," Elena looked down, "then it'll hurt. But we'll still have this." "You say that like it's enough." "No," Elena said. "I say that like it's worth it." They spent the rest of the day together, moving slowly, tenderly, like people who knew. The clock was ticking, but refused to let it be louder than the love growing in the spaces between their silences. They cooked breakfast. Vivian burned the toast. Elena laughed. They danced in the living room to music too soft to name. They shared stories neither of them had told before. Memories, regrets, wishes. Elena learned that Vivian once broke her arm falling out of a tree when she was 11. that she used to volunteer at an animal shelter before her diagnosis, that she hadn't spoken to her sister in 5 years. Elena told her about the time she ran away from home for 3 hours when she was 13, convinced she could live on candy and rebellion, that her first crush was on her math teacher, that she used to believe she was incapable of loving anyone fully. They talked until their voices gave out, until silence felt like a gift, not a gap. That night, they shared the bed again, not out of need, but out of choice. Elena held Vivian close as sleep came, and Vivian whispered into the dark, "I think I'm falling in love with you." Elena didn't answer. Not yet. But she kissed her shoulder, and in the quiet, that was enough. Elena hadn't realized how quickly you could get used to someone's presence, until she caught herself reaching for Vivian's hand in the middle of a conversation, and forgot it hadn't always been there. The days had blurred into something dangerously close to happiness. Not perfect, not free of fear, but real, intimate, quiet. And that made it worse because she was starting to forget that it wasn't permanent, that nothing about this was promised, that every day was one more borrowed from the edge. That morning, Vivian stood on the balcony wrapped in a thick gray sweater, her arms crossed against the cold breeze. Elena joined her in silence, bringing her a steaming mug of tea. Vivian took it without a word. The city stretched before them like it didn't know what grief was, like it had never lost anything. "I could almost believe it," Vivian said finally. "Believe what? That this is normal. That this is mine. That you're not going to walk away." Elena looked at her. "Why do you keep thinking I will?" "Because people don't stay through the bad parts. They say they will, but they don't. I'm not people. Everyone says that until they become people, too." Elena stepped closer. "I'm still here for now. Do you want me to go?" "No," Vivian said too fast. "But I don't know how to let you stay." Elena set her mug down and turned to face her. "Then tell me what you're really afraid of." "Not death. Not pain. Me." Vivian flinched like it was the first time someone had seen through the mask completely. "I'm afraid you'll make me hope again. And if I do, then I'll have something to lose." "You already do." Vivian's breath caught. Elena didn't reach for her. She let the space stand. "You told me not to fall in love with you," Elena said. "But you didn't say anything about what happens if I already have." Vivian looked away. "Don't say that." "Why not?" "Because I won't survive it if you mean it. You're surviving in spite of it. That's the difference." Vivian's voice dropped. "You should go." Elena froze. "What?" "You should leave now before this becomes something we can't undo." "It already is." "Elena, no. You don't get to do that. You don't get to kiss me, sleep beside me, tell me you're falling for me, and then ask me to pretend it didn't happen. I'm protecting you." "No, Vivian. You're protecting yourself from the best thing that's ever happened to you." Vivian's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You think love will save me?" "No," Elena whispered. "I think love will let you live until the end. And that's more than enough." But Vivian shook her head. "I can't need you like this. Too late. Elena, please." The words were so quiet they almost disappeared into the wind. Elena's chest tightened. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. But instead, she stepped back. "If you really want me to go, I will. But don't pretend it's because of me. It's because you're scared to let yourself be loved." Vivian didn't answer. She didn't move. Elena waited. 1 second to 10, but Vivian didn't stop her. So she left. The door closed behind her with a soft finality that felt like it echoed for miles. Vivian stood alone on the balcony, the city blurring through her tears. She had told herself this was inevitable, that no one stays. But the silence that followed was different. It wasn't the silence of being alone. It was the silence of having chosen it. And for the first time, she regretted it the second it began. The silence didn't stop once Elena walked out. It followed her into the elevator, into the street, into the rhythm of her footsteps. As she moved through the city, like someone who no longer knew where she was going, she didn't go home. Couldn't. Her apartment felt foreign now. Too small, too empty, too full of things that didn't have Vivian's scent on them. She checked her phone 3 times in the first hour. No messages, no missed calls, nothing. Elena told herself she had done the right thing. That if Vivian couldn't let her in, there was nothing left to fight for. But her chest still had like something had been ripped out. Like she had walked away from a part of herself. That night, she slept on the couch. She hadn't done that in years. She kept waking up with phantom sensations like someone was still breathing beside her, like she could still feel Vivian's fingers brushing through her hair. The next morning, she went back to work. She stepped into the hospital and immediately felt the shift. The noise, the chaos, the clarity. It used to ground her. It used to be enough. Now it only reminded her of what she left behind. One of the nurses approached her with wide eyes. "You're back early." "Yeah," Elena said, forcing a smile. "Things changed. Everything okay?" Elena hesitated. "It will be. Maybe. Hopefully." Vivian, meanwhile, didn't leave her bed for nearly 12 hours. She didn't eat. She didn't open the curtains. Her body felt heavier without Elena in the apartment, like gravity had doubled. She stared at her phone for a long time, then threw it across the room. Not hard. Not enough to break it, just enough to punish herself. She had done what she always did, push someone away before they had the chance to disappoint her. But Elena hadn't left because she was tired. She left because Vivian hadn't asked her to stay. And that hurt worse than any symptom. That night, Vivian found herself walking barefoot across the cold floor, sitting at the piano she hadn't touched since that morning with Elena. She tried to play. Her hands didn't move right. Her fingers didn't respond. The music wouldn't come. She slammed the lid closed. Her chest tightened. She pressed a hand to it, gasping. Pain, not just emotional now. Her body was failing her. And she was alone. For 2 days. They didn't speak. Elena kept busy at the hospital. She was good at pretending. But every time her phone buzzed, she hoped. Every time she passed a woman with dark hair and too much elegance, her heart stumbled. She didn't tell anyone what had happened. She didn't want pity. She just wanted Vivian to fight for her. On the 3rd night, just after 9:00 p.m., her phone lit up. Unknown number. "Are you awake?" Elena's heart thudded. She stared at the screen. She didn't respond immediately. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Then "I didn't mean it." Elena closed her eyes. That hurt more than silence. She typed, "What didn't you mean?" "All of it. I didn't want you to go. I just didn't know how to say stay." Elena's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then say it now." The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Please stay." Elena stared at the message, then stood, grabbed her keys. She didn't need more time. She just needed to hear it in person. 20 minutes later, she stood in front of the penthouse door. She didn't knock. Vivian opened it before she could. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair messy, her body smaller somehow. But she was standing. "You came?" Vivian whispered. "You ask." Vivian looked like she might collapse. Elena reached for her, arms sliding around her waist. She didn't say anything, just held her. Vivian buried her face in Elena's neck. "I'm sorry. I know. I was so scared." "Me, too. But I missed you more." "Then stop pushing me away." Vivian nodded against her skin. "I will. I swear." Elena pulled back just enough to look at her. "I'm not going to survive losing you twice. You won't have to." For the first time since they met, there were no walls, no masks, no performance, just 2 people holding on to each other like it might be the last time and praying it wasn't. The air in the penthouse felt different after Elena returned. Less like waiting, more like living. Neither of them spoke much the night she came back. They didn't need to. They curled into each other on the couch like two halves of something. That had been torn apart too long. Elena held Vivian with a quiet intensity, her hand pressed to the woman's back, like grounding her to the moment could somehow slow time. You feel warm, Elena murmured against her skin. I always do when you're near. That's not romantic. That's a fever. Then don't ruin it. But Elena pulled back, searching her eyes. You're sweating and your pulse is fast. I'm fine. You're not. I just got you back. Don't make this about dying. I'm not. I'm making it about you not hiding it anymore. Vivian exhaled a slow surrender. Okay. Tomorrow we go to the hospital just to check your levels. Only if you stay with me the whole time. Always. The next day was quiet and clinical. Elena didn't wear her scrubs. She held Vivian's hand in the waiting room like any terrified partner would. She stood behind the doctor as he read the results. She didn't cry when the numbers came back worse than before. She just tightened her grip. Vivian didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Her silence said everything. On the ride home, she finally spoke. He said, I have weeks. He said he didn't know. That's different. It's not. It is if we decide it is. You can't fight biology with hope. No. But I can fight it with love. Vivian turned her head, eyes heavy. You really believe that? I believe that love gives us more time than fear ever will. For the rest of the week, they didn't talk about dying. Not once. They filled the apartment with other things. Music, warmth, terrible attempts at cooking. Elena read aloud at night. Vivian fell asleep mid-sentence. They started planning imaginary trips they'd never take. Paris, Kyoto, Patagonia. We'd never survive the altitude. Vivian teased. I'd carry you. That's adorable and tragic. That's us. They took photos. Not many. Just enough. Candid ones. Laughing, holding hands. Elena tried not to see the weight Vivian was losing. Tried not to hear the cough that came. Deeper every day. But late at night, when the laughter faded, when the apartment grew still, she lay awake with her arm draped around Vivian's waist, counting her breaths, terrified of when they might stop. One night, Vivian woke with a start, sweating, trembling, eyes unfocused. I dreamed you were gone, she whispered. You weren't even sick in the dream. Just gone. Elena pulled her close, holding her against her chest. I'm not going anywhere. Promise. No. But I'll stay as long as I can. Vivian cried then. For the first time, in front of Elena, silent, shattering tears that soaked into the skin between them. Elena didn't tell her to stop. Didn't pretend it would be okay. She just held her, one hand stroking her back, whispering, I love you, over and over again until the tremors slowed. And Vivian, voice shaking, whispered it back. I love you, too. They fell asleep like that, breathless, honest, terrified, in love, entirely. The sun filtered gently through the hospital blinds, soft and golden, casting stripes of light across Vivian's face. She was asleep, her breathing shallow, but steady. Machines hummed quietly beside her, constant reminders of how fragile this moment was. Elena hadn't slept. She didn't want to. She lay curled beside Vivian in the narrow hospital bed, holding her hand, watching her chest rise and fall like it might stop if she looked away. A nurse entered quietly. She froze when she saw them, then smiled, whispering, You want me to bring you coffee? Not yet, Elena replied. Thank you. The door closed again. Elena turned her face toward Vivian, brushing her fingers across her cheek. Hey, she whispered. Still with me. Vivian's eyelids fluttered, then opened. Barely. But enough. Barely. You look like hell. You still love me, though, more than anything. Vivian gave her a ghost of a smile. Even now, especially now. Elena took a breath. She had rehearsed this in her head over and over. But now, with Vivian looking at her like she was the only thing in the world that still made sense, the words trembled in her mouth. I want you to come home with me. Vivian blinked slowly. Home to my place. With me one last time. Elena, please. I don't want your last day to be in this bed. I want it to be with music playing and sunlight on your face. I want it to be with pancakes you won't eat and me holding your hand on our own damn couch. Vivian was quiet. Then they'll say it's irresponsible. Let them. They'll say I should stay here to die. Then we'll prove them wrong and live. That night, against the odds, Vivian went home. Not alone, not weak, carried in Elena's arms, wrapped in blankets, heart full of something stronger than pain. The penthouse was warm when they arrived. Elena had called ahead, lit candles, put on music, their favorite playlist. Vivian smiled when she heard it. You remembered. I remember everything. They spent the evening on the couch, curled under a blanket. Elena made her tea, kissed her forehead, held her close. For hours, they just breathed together. As night fell, Vivian spoke. I never thought I'd get to die like this. Elena looked at her. You're not dying tonight. No, no, tonight you're just tired and loved. Vivian nodded slowly. I can live with that. They slept tangled together on the couch. When Elena woke, sunlight was already painting the walls, and Vivian was still there. Still breathing, still hers. And she stayed. Days passed. Not hours, not minutes, days. Each one a miracle. Elena took leave from the hospital. Vivian stopped, asking how much time she had. They just lived slowly, softly, side by side. The doctors were stunned. Her body should have failed long ago. But somehow it hadn't. Not completely. Not yet. 1 week later, they sat on the rooftop wrapped in sweaters, watching the sky fade pink. Vivian's voice was soft. You know, I asked you to pretend to be my girlfriend for one day. Elena looked at her. I remember. And now you're mine for real. Vivian smiled, weak but radiant. Then I want to ask you something real. Elena's breath caught. Ask, will you marry me? Elena blinked, stunned. Vivian, I know it's crazy. We don't have forever. We don't even have long. But I want to die knowing I gave you everything, even my name. Elena reached for her, tears filling her eyes. Yes, of course. Yes. They didn't wait. There was no point. The next morning, on the rooftop, under a pale blue sky, they exchanged vows. Just the two Dillas. No guests, no rings, just whispered promises and lips trembling with love and fear and joy. Elena held Vivian's hands and said, I will love you for every breath we're given, and I will keep loving you even after the last one. Vivian, eyes wet, whispered, you gave me more life than I ever thought I'd have. I'm yours until the very, very end. They kissed, married, in love, alive. The world didn't stop for them. But for a moment, it felt like it had paused just long enough to let them belong to each other. And Vivian didn't die that day, or the next, or the one after that. She held on for weeks for Elena, for them. And when the end finally came, quiet, gentle in her sleep, it wasn't in a hospital bed. It was in their home wrapped in Elena's arms, her favorite music playing in the background, and the last words she ever heard were Elena whispering, I love you. With a smile on her lips, Vivian Cross let go. Not in fear, not in pain, but in love fully, truly, finally. And Elena, heartbroken, but whole, kept her promise. She lived for both of them. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.